Hey guys, tonight we slip quietly into a world of paper names, folded codes, and shoes that squeak a little too loudly when the enemy gets close. The air is heavy with cigarette smoke and suspicion. You're in a Paris cafe, small, dim, and a bit too quiet for your liking. The walls sweat with damp plaster and low whispers. Every saucer clink sounds like a gunshot in your head. You're trying not to notice the man in the corner reading Le Figaro upside down, or the waiter who seems just a little too interested in how slowly you sip your coffee. Your coat is draped over the back of your chair, just as instructed. The sugar bowl is turned north. There's a buttered toast on the side plate. That's the sign, or it isn't. The protocol changes often. Sometimes it's a red carnation. Sometimes it's the wrong watch on the right wrist. You were told you'd know, so before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, tell me where you're watching from and what time it is right now. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're not James Bond. There's no Aston Martin waiting outside, no explosive pen in your jacket. The most exciting thing on your person is a false ration book that smells faintly of glue. You look normal. That's the point. In fact, it's boring. Very boring. That's what makes it effective. Your cover. A clerk for the Vichy government. You have a dull name, a dull haircut, and you wear glasses you don't need. You carry a bag full of forged documents and a small notebook filled with code phrases hidden behind lists of fake butter deliveries. Today's mission is simple. Make contact, confirm the handler's identity, and pass along a code for a radio drop happening 3 days from now in a sleepy village where nothing has happened since Napoleon passed gas in the general direction of Prussia. You take another sip of coffee. It's terrible. The milk is sour. You try not to gag. That would be unprofessional. The cafe door creaks. A man enters. Tweed coat, thin mustache, slight limp. He orders a croissant. You wait. He picks up Le Monde, places it on the table. You wait. He turns the page. The crossword is already filled in with answers that don't make sense unless you've memorized the cipher key hidden inside your left sock. You shift slightly. Cross your leg. Tap your toe. Once. Then twice. He looks up, says in a flat voice, "You always take your coffee without sugar." You reply evenly. "Not if there's cinnamon toast." Bingo. He nods. Doesn't smile. Slides a folded paper under your saucer. You don't look at it. Not yet. That would be suspicious. You talk for 5 more minutes about the weather, the trains, the miserable price of eggs. Then he leaves. You let your coffee go cold. You leave 10 minutes later, taking the long road around the butcher, behind the church, past the flower stand, where the old woman with no teeth mutters gossip like it's prophecy. Only once you're back in your cramped apartment do you unfold the note. 3 lines of code, a time, a location, a signal flare, color blue. You burn the paper immediately. Open the window. Let the ashes float like dirty snowflakes into the street. You sit on the bed. You listen. You always listen. A dog barks somewhere down the alley. A child laughs. A bicycle clicks by. But there's no knock. Not yet. You check the window twice before drawing the curtains, because in this life you never assume you're alone. Historians still argue whether small cafe exchanges like this were over-dramatized after the war, whether spies really used bread rolls and sugar cubes as signals, or whether those stories were invented to sell memoirs. But your nerves don't lie. Your sweat doesn't lie. And the buttered toast definitely didn't lie. You crawl into bed, fully dressed, just in case. Because in this work, dreams are often interrupted by knocks, or worse, no knock at all. The alarm doesn't ring. Alarms are for regular lives, and yours ended the moment you signed that brittle oath on a table that smelled like ink and damp wool. Instead, you wake by instinct eyes snapping open to the low blue-gray of dawn, bleeding in through your shuttered window. Your bag is already packed. It's been packed for days. You sit on the edge of the bed, boots half-laced, and remind yourself, today is not yours. Today belongs to your cover. Your handler called it training, but it never really stopped. It began months ago in a nondescript country house that pretended not to be a training center. There were chickens, apple trees, a stoic cook who made too much porridge. On the surface, a rustic escape. Underneath, a factory for lies. You remember the first lesson clearly. Don't act brave. Learn to pass. They taught you how to walk, like someone who didn't care if they were followed. How to answer questions with 3 truths and 1 lie, but never in the same order. How to leave no fingerprints on a wine glass. How to cry without tears. You trained with others, men with jawlines like cliffs, women who could shoot better than you ever will. One school teacher who could forge signatures so accurately it scared even the trainers. One by one, they disappeared into assignments. Most didn't come back. You kept going. They taught you how to jump from a plane without breaking your legs, how to fold a map so it fits into a shoe sole, how to kill a man with a belt if it ever came to that. You weren't very good at that part, but you were excellent at being invisible. They had exercises where you had to move from one town to another without being seen. You got caught the first time, and the second, but on the third, you made it. You remember the instructor's rare nod. "Congratulations," he said. "You just survived 5 extra days." You didn't ask what he meant. Later, they handed you your cover story. You read it like a novel. Name, parents, school, favorite dessert, the name of your imaginary childhood dog. It felt ridiculous. Then they made you say it under pressure. Loud noises, bright lights, No sleep. Every time, exactly the same. Until it didn't feel fake anymore. You started answering to your false name, even when alone. You started dreaming in your cover's memories. One night they told you to burn your real ID. You hesitated. They said, spies don't get real funerals. You burned it. The final training. The radio. The clunky thing looked like a sewing machine mated with a typewriter. You had to build it blindfolded, then dismantle it, then hide it in a suitcase that also held cheese just to throw off the dogs. You learned Morse code, not just the dits and das, but the personality of each operator. Tap too fast. Your trainer warned, and they'll know you're new. Tap too slow, and they'll think you're nervous. Be boring. You were never so proud to be described as boring. They taught you how to handle being caught. Hold out for 48 hours, they said. After that, we assume the worst. One agent asked, what if we last longer? The answer, we won't be listening. Historians still argue how comprehensive the SOE and OSS trainings truly were, whether they truly turned farmhands into spies or whether the legends grew in the telling. But you know what it did for you. It taught you how to vanish in plain sight. Now back in your real, not real life, you leave your flat like it's any other morning. Down the steps, past the bread shop, where the baker nods like he always does. You nod back, even though you suspect his wife whispers into the wrong ears. Your bag is heavy with normal things. A half loaf of bread, a scarf, an onion, and sewn into the lining a coded message that could reroute a supply drop and change the fate of 200 men. You walk like your knees don't shake. You stop at the corner for a newspaper. You keep your eyes low. You don't run. You never run. Because no matter what the movies say, being a spy is not about action. It's about acting. And you're finally ready for the stayer. Your name today is Marie Fournier. You are 27. You were born in Nantes, near the estuary, in a house with blue shutters and a lemon tree in the yard. Your father was a railway clerk. Your mother sold fabrics and always smelled faintly of lavender. You attended school until 15, left to help at home. And now you work in records for the local Vichy transport office. None of that is true, but all of it must be believed, especially by you. You carry your identity card in the inside pocket of your jacket. You've rubbed the paper so many times, it has the texture of old linen. You've memorized the expiration date, the serial number, even the exact angle of the official's red wax stamp. It tilts to the left. That might save your life one day. In your mind, you rehearse it constantly. My name is Marie Fournier. I was born July 3rd, 1916. My father worked at Gare de Nantes. If someone stops you and asks, you won't hesitate. If someone stares a little too long at the photo on your ID, you'll smile and say, my hair was longer then. If someone calls you by your real name, you won't even flinch because you might not even recognize it anymore. That's how far you've come. They say the hardest part of spycraft is lying to others. It isn't. It's lying to yourself every hour until the lie becomes safer than the truth. You walk to work like Marie does, shoulders slightly rounded, pace brisk, but never rushed. You carry a paper folder filled with forms that mean nothing. You smile at the receptionist in the hallway with that same strained cordiality as every other morning. She offers you a boiled sweet. You decline, as usual. Marie doesn't like sweets. You do, or at least you used to. At your desk, there's a stack of requisition forms. You file them slowly, methodically, page after page of trains being scheduled, boxes being moved, livestock accounted for. None of it really matters until it does, because buried inside that stack is a transport order for a convoy leaving in 3 days. Unusually heavy, unusually urgent. You casually fold it into your satchel. You'll pass it on tonight. Around you, the office hums like an insect hive. Keys clack. Paper shuffles. Somewhere, someone coughs. You've been here long enough now that no one questions you. That's good. It's also terrifying, because the deeper in you go, the less room there is to turn back. Historians still argue whether spies truly maintained dual lives, or if compartmentalization eventually broke them. Some claim many agents became addicted to the lies, addicted to the adrenaline. Others say the greatest threat was forgetting who they were supposed to be. You understand both sides. Last week, someone called your real name on the street, not loudly, just a soft, questioning tone. You kept walking, not because you were afraid, but because for a second, you didn't recognize it. You're becoming Marie. Or rather, Marie is becoming you. At lunch, you eat alone. A crust of bread, half an apple, some dried sausage. You read a book by Emile Zola. Not because you like it, but because it's on Marie's profile. You mark a passage you don't understand with a dog ear. You might quote it someday, just to sound convincingly average. After work, you take a long route home. Twice you change sidewalks. Not because you're being followed, but because you can never be sure. You stop at the flower cart, admire the violets, ask about tulips. The vendor doesn't sell tulips, but when you ask anyway, he scratches his nose twice and gives you a brown paper envelope with a frayed edge. You tuck it into your coat without looking. You talk about the weather for 27 more seconds. Then you leave. At home, you lock the door, draw the blinds, turn on the radio loud enough to cover your voice, but not loud enough to draw attention. Then you open the envelope. Inside 3 train numbers, 2 addresses, and a time. You write them down on the back of a utility bill, nothing suspicious, and stuff it into your boot. Then you burn the envelope in your kitchen sink. The flame crackles, then fades. You breathe. You are Marie Fournier. You always have been. And if the real you is buried somewhere deep, well, she's safer down there. The plane doesn't roar. It whispers. It's one of those clunky British Lysanders, stripped of anything unnecessary, wings slick with night dew, humming like a wasp, trying not to be noticed. You're hunched in the rear seat, knees pressed to your chest, your boots already muddy, even before you hit the ground. The pilot says nothing. You say nothing. Too much silence between two people who may never see each other again. The sky outside is black velvet. Below, fields, hedgerows, scattered barns. No lights, no roads, just ink and instinct. You're told the landing zone is a cow pasture in northern France, near a town whose name you still mispronounce even after rehearsing it in the back of your throat for a week. There should be a signal, 2 lanterns placed like sleepy eyes in the grass. You spot them at the last moment. The plane dips, jerks, lurches. Your stomach flutters like it forgot how to land. Then the door opens. You fall, not far but fast. Not graceful, but alive. Your boots hit the earth with a splat. It's not heroic. It's muddy and cold and smells faintly of manure. Welcome to the field. You crouch low, remove the parachute, bury it fast beneath some brush. Every movement is practiced, drilled into you over months. But now it's real. Your breath fogs. Your hands shake slightly. Then footsteps. Soft, measured. A man approaches, 2 fingers pressed to his lips. He doesn't speak. He just hands you a sack. Inside civilian clothes, a forged ID, a bicycle tire patch kit, not for patching anything, and a folded piece of paper with your first contact's name, code name Henrietta. He disappears. You're alone. You change clothes behind a haystack. The dress is scratchy, and the hem is too short. That's intentional French fashion, even under occupation, never quite surrendered to utility. You sling the small pack over your shoulder and start walking. The path isn't marked. The directions are vague. But your job isn't to know where you're going. It's to act like you've always known. A distant owl hoots. A dog barks, then quiets. You pass through a hedge, wade across a shallow stream, and finally reach the edge of a farm road. There's a bicycle leaning against a fence. It's yours now. You pedal slowly, fast enough to look purposeful, slow enough not to attract attention. Every pothole jars your bones. The night air stings your face. But you ride on because the drop is only step 1. The game has already started. Historians still argue how common these Lysander drops were. How many agents landed in cow fields versus simply taking trains with forged papers. But tonight you know this. You're here, and you got in quiet. The first town you reach is asleep, shutters closed, streets empty. Even the cats seem cautious. You walk your bicycle through the alleyways until you find it an old bakery with a cracked window pane and a sign that reads, Fermé, jusqu'à nouvel ordre, closed until further notice. That's your marker. You tap twice on the door, pause, then 3 times more. A slit opens, 2 eyes, 1 breath, a bolt unlatches. You step inside. Henriette is not what you expected. She's 60 if she's a day with hands like firewood and a bun that's held in place by sheer force of habit. She offers no greetings, just a plate of boiled potatoes and a towel to dry your boots. You eat in silence. She speaks only once. Tomorrow you are my niece. You hate goats, but you love jam. You nod. No one will question it. Everyone loves jam. Your bed is a straw mattress in the back next to a rack of moldy bread. You sleep with your shoes on, the bag under your arm, your back to the wall. You don't dream. You don't allow it. Because you're not safe yet. You've only just arrived. You wake to the smell of yeast and ashes. It's barely dawn, but the bakery already hums with activity. Not customers. There are none but movement, quiet and precise. Henriette is kneading dough like it insulted her in a past life, her thick forearms dusted with flour. Her expression doesn't change when she sees you emerge. She nods toward the basin. You wash quickly. Your cover begins now. You are the niece, the one who hates goats, the one who loves jam. You remind yourself 3 times as you butter your bread. Henriette hands you a head of lettuce. You'll deliver this to the butcher on Rue Jean, she says, wiping her hands on her apron. Tell him it's soft today. If he gives you cabbage in return, we're burned. You blink. Go, she says. You walk. The lettuce is heavier than it should be. Inside, somewhere near the stem, is a rolled piece of carbon paper, a micro message written in minute cursive, addressed to a name that isn't real. It's folded around a sliver of photographic film the size of your fingernail. You were trained for this, to hide intelligence in the mundane. Letters in loaves, maps in mittens, radio crystals sewn inside stuffed rabbits. The butcher greets you with a grunt. He takes the lettuce. Soft today, you say evenly. He looks at it, squeezes the head like he's judging a melon at the market. Then he turns, goes into the back room, and comes back with a paper-wrapped cabbage. Hope you like it spicy, he mutters. It's a joke, or maybe a warning. You smile politely and walk out. You've passed your first field test. Back at the bakery, Henrietta gives no praise, just a nod and a dry biscuit. The cabbage, once unwrapped, reveals a fresh code book stitched into the outer leaves. The writing is minuscule, done with what appears to be a single hair brush. You will have to memorize every word and destroy it by dawn. You do. It takes all night. The next morning, your fingers smell like boiled greens and ink. The routine begins deliveries that are not deliveries. Phrases that mean far more than they seem. A request for a pound of salt means a meeting at the church bell tower. A note pinned to a dead rat near the canal means a German unit has shifted east. Every word is a weapon, every phrase a test. Henrietta says little, but she watches everything. One afternoon, you watch her slice a loaf of rye, then pause. Her eyes narrow at the window. A boy is walking past with a satchel full of baguettes. One too many. He does this every Thursday, but today he hums the wrong tune. That's enough. Upstairs, she whispers. You don't ask. You go. The hiding place is cramped. The floorboards creak like old bones. You press yourself against the wall, and slow your breathing. Minutes pass, then footsteps, loud, confident, voices below. One of them speaks perfect French with a German cough. Henriette sounds annoyed, not scared. She offers bread, insults their taste. They laugh. Then they leave. You exhale after they're gone. She doesn't mention it later, but she brings you tea that night. That's Henriette's version of affection. Historians still argue whether everyday resistance helpers like her were central or peripheral. But you know better. Henriette doesn't help the resistance. She is the resistance. Every cabbage, every loaf, every moment. She risks everything. You try not to think about what would happen if she were caught, because the Gestapo doesn't ask nicely. You go to bed that night with a cabbage on one side, a radio part in your sock, and a coded message hidden in the heel of your shoe. You haven't blinked at a German soldier in days. That's probably good. You haven't said your real name in longer. That's probably better. But sometimes in the still moments before sleep, you think of your family, of your handwriting, of the small mole on your real right hand that your fake profile says doesn't exist. And you wonder when this is over, if you'll ever get your name back. You assemble the radio in pieces, spread out on a cloth napkin, behind a false wall in the attic. The ceiling is low, and you have to crouch like a spider, careful not to knock over the tin lamp, burning weak kerosene fumes into the stale air. It's a Type 3 Mark II suitcase radio, your closest companion in the field. It looks harmless enough, bulky, boxy, with dials that stick and wires that like to twist just when you need them straight. But this machine whispers through mountains and night skies, across enemy lines, all the way back to London. You know how to speak to it, gently. Because if you get this wrong, if the frequency's off or you linger too long, someone could triangulate your location in minutes, and the next sound you hear will not be Morse code. It'll be boots. Outside it's raining. That's good. Rain means noise. Noise means safety. You twist the dial to 6.73 megahertz. The coil whines. You adjust the crystal tuner with frozen fingers. The lamp flickers. You glance once at the attic door. Locked. Then again at the time. 02:03. You were supposed to begin at 01:58. 5 minutes late. Not ideal. You tap your first message. Fishmonger red sun begins at noon. It's nonsense, but nonsense laced with meaning. The receiving station in England has the key. They'll decipher the location, the timing, the supplies needed. It takes you 12 minutes to send the full message. You breathe between bursts, eyes darting to the floorboards, listening for footsteps. Nothing. Then confirmation, a reply. 3 short bursts. The sound is ugly and beautiful all at once. You nearly cry, but you don't. You shut the device down immediately, dismantle it again, and hide the components. The tuner in the bread box. The coil under the bed slats. The battery under the sack of onions downstairs. You'll reassemble it again in 3 days. Different time, different signal, different risk. Historians still debate whether most agents use the suitcase radios or simpler disguise transmitters. But your trainer once said, you want reliability. You use what makes noise. Quiet tools get quiet results. You sleep for 2 hours. Then you walk into town like nothing happened. In the morning, there's a knock on the bakery door. It's not a German, it's a child. She holds a crust of bread and a slip of paper tied with twine. Henriette reads it, frowns. The contact missed his mark. Your message might have been compromised. Your stomach sinks. You fight the urge to pace. I'll find out tonight, Henriette adds. Go deliver jam. You leave without a word. This is the game. You smile at neighbors. You talk about weather. You sell a jar of fake jam that contains a rolled-up photo of a bridge soon to be blown up. At sunset, Henriette doesn't return. You wait. 1 hour, 2. You begin to pack the radio again, just in case. Then knock. A single sharp tap. Not Henrietta, a man. Face you don't know. Code phrase slightly off. You say nothing. You open the oven door, an old trick, and reach for the bread tin. The man backs away. He's smart. Wrong oven, he mutters. He vanishes. It was a test, or a warning, or a threat. You recheck every hiding place that night, even the ones you trust most, especially those. The attic feels smaller now. The shadows lean closer. You transmit again. Fewer words this time. Almonds sour. Package late. Host unaccounted. They reply, confirm host, status, or extract. You reply, wait. Chance remains. You sign off. You don't sleep. Next day, Henriette returns. Mud on her shoes. Blood on her scarf. She says I made it awkward, but I'm still charming. She says no more. You don't ask. You make tea. You tell her the signal was sent, that your contact tried something clever. She spits on the floor. Clever people die loud. You nod. You take the bread tin and move the coil somewhere new, somewhere quieter, just in case. Because every time you send a message into the dark, you wonder if someone's already listening with intent to end you. And every time you hear the static click back, you remember this isn't a game. It's a conversation with silence. And silence rarely forgives mistakes. It's amazing how much you can learn from someone else's mail. You never used to think about letters. Now you think about them constantly. How they're folded, who signs them, how the paper smells. You stand in a modest post office, pretending to admire the lace on a telegram envelope while a small operation unfolds in the back room, an intercepted package, a pot of steam, and a woman named Odette with glasses thick enough to count eyelashes. Odette is part of a network you only met last week. She looks like someone's mother, someone's aunt, the kind of woman who folds napkins into swans at family dinners. But today, she's boiling stolen correspondence from a German officer who enjoys writing poetry on requisition forms. This one's dramatic, she mutters, slipping a soggy envelope into your gloved hands. You read the note inside. A love letter, tender, overwritten, and signed. Yours until the last trumpet. But in the margin, the code, transfer 4th Battalion to Buchenwald on 23rd. Romance is exhausting. Logistics are useful. You copy the contents quickly and dry the letter with a hand fan. By noon, the envelope is resealed. By 3, it's back on the pile. By 5, the officer's mistress will read it over tea and sigh about fate. You'll have already sent the note through Henriette to London. They'll reroute 2 agents out of danger before nightfall. Historians still argue how effective these mail interceptions were. Some say they changed the tide of occupation. Others believe they were glorified gossip rings. But when you're in the room watching someone rewrite a war with invisible ink and boiled envelopes, it feels real. The worst letters, deportation notices. You've seen a few. Typed coldly with numbers instead of names. One had a lipstick kiss on the edge, likely from a daughter who never knew what it said. You pass that letter back, hand trembling. Sometimes there's nothing you can do, but not today. Today the poetry helped. Your shift at the post office ends with a false log entry and a cookie from Odette. "Don't get caught," she says. "Thanks. I'll try," that you reply. That night back at the bakery, Henriette has visitors. 4 men, 1 woman, all in plain clothes but the kind that don't wrinkle by accident. One of them drops a sugar cube on the table. Henrietta picks it up, snaps it in half. Inside a pin-sized message. You pretend not to watch, but your eyes count every blink. The woman turns to you. "You're the one with the good hands?" "Apparently so." She lays a pile of envelopes on the table. These need to look like they were never touched. You get to work. Steam, pat, press, reseal, repeat. For 6 hours, you handle other people's secrets. A factory request, a list of inventory from a medical depot, a reply from a boy to his mother, oddly timed, strangely phrased, possibly encoded. You pass that one to Henriette. She reads it, smiles sadly, burns it without a word. The others leave. You're left with the lingering smell of wax and glue. You dream of envelopes that night. One follows you through a forest. One has your name on it, and one, for some reason, bleeds. You wake before dawn. Rain again. The kind that makes you want to confess, even if you've done nothing wrong. The teaspoon is dull. It fits neatly into your palm, glinting faintly under the lantern's yellow breath. It looks innocent bent at the handle, barely polished, but it's heavier than it should be. That's because it's filled with plastic explosive. Henrietta slides it across the table toward you like she's offering marmalade. "You'll need to walk slowly," she says. "Not for discretion, for your own safety." You nod. You've carried messages. You've passed along intelligence. But this is different. This is sabotage. Tonight you'll break something that someone somewhere will need. You'll make an enemy miss a train or curse the cold. You'll slow them, frustrate them, or better stop them. but only if you survive long enough to place the teaspoon. You tuck it inside a sack of coffee beans, your delivery. You tie the sack like a bored assistant, then sling it over your shoulder. The rain has stopped. The silence afterward feels thicker. You walk. The tracks are 15 minutes away. Through town, past a checkpoint. Then onto a back trail where the local youth claim to catch frogs, though no one's caught a frog there since 1939. The checkpoint is manned by 2 soldiers. They don't glance up. One yawns. The other hums a German lullaby. You keep walking. The rails gleam ahead like silver veins. You stop at the bend, where a curve slows the train just enough. You kneel, pretend to retie your boot. Your fingers tremble. You place the teaspoon into the small groove beneath the iron plate. You slide it in until it clicks against the wooden sleeper. Then you press a pin so small it might be mistaken for a grain of rice. You stand. The sack is lighter now. You walk away. Later that night you listen for the train. At exactly 22:14, the ground groans. A distant screech. A sudden metallic yawn. Then silence. You don't ask. Henrietta doesn't mention it. In the morning, the local paper speaks of a mechanical fault. But the bakery hears whispers of a delay, a frustrated colonel, and a shipment that never made it to Metz. You eat your porridge slowly. That day you're asked to deliver a letter to a mill near the woods. But it's not a letter. It's a jar of jam with a false bottom. Inside a fuse, 2 strips of magnesium and a hand-drawn map of a bridge. You're starting to realize something sabotage is rarely dramatic. It's not about explosions and glory. It's about minor inconveniences in all the right places. A loose bolt, a sticky lock, a bridge delayed just long enough. Historians still argue how much impact these acts had, whether small disruptions truly bent the shape of war. But the commanders who missed supply trains never doubted it. Nor did the engineers who had to explain broken parts that shouldn't have failed. That evening, you help Henrietta sew something into a messenger bag. A strip of iron dust, a magnet, a sliver of wax with a timer. "Where's this one going, you ask?" "Into a captain's motorbike," she replies. You stare. She shrugs. He parks too close to the bakery. Sometimes revenge is personal. You laugh for the first time in weeks. That night you dream of teaspoons. They clink in teacups. They hold sugar. They carry secrets. In one dream, someone hands you a gold one and says, "Congratulations, you've disrupted everything." You wake, smiling. Then you hide the smile. Because in the resistance, joy is also contraband. You never thought you'd fear bicycles. But now every creak of a pedal feels like a warning. Every loose spoke sounds like betrayal. And the seat, dear God, the seat has become your confessional. You're riding to a small chapel 5 kilometers out. On paper, you're delivering candles. In reality, you're delivering a radio crystal in a hollowed-out saddlebag. The message confirmation of an Allied airdrop scheduled in 2 nights. But you're not thinking about the message. You're thinking about the boy. He's been following you for 3 turns now. 17, maybe. Dark cap, frayed trousers, and a grin like he thinks you're part of a scavenger hunt. You slow down. He slows too. You stop to adjust your shoe. He stops to admire a tree. You pull off the road. He does the same. And that's when you make the decision. You drop the bike, turn on him, and ask too sweetly, looking for something. He freezes. He's not resistance, not Gestapo, just some poor curious boy with the timing of a tragedy. You walk toward him slowly. He backs away. I saw you, he stammers, at the bakery. You nod. Yes, I work there. And you? He mutters a name, a place, something about chickens. You walk past him, brush his shoulder, leave him staring at the bike. 5 minutes later, he's gone, and you're sweating under your dress like you've just run a marathon. You reach the chapel. Inside it's empty, except for an old priest with eyes like cellar doors. He nods at your approach. You kneel in the third pew and unscrew a candle from its base. Inside, an identical copy of your crystal. You swap them. He offers you a wafer. You take it. The taste of flour and dust. You leave without speaking. Historians still argue whether churches were commonly used in espionage networks. Many insist the clergy were too cautious. Others argue the sanctuary made the best hiding place because no one ever wants to believe that salvation and sabotage shared a roof. You know the truth. Even God had to pick a side. That night, back in town, a local cafe burns. No one knows why. No one speaks loudly about it. But Henrietta smells smoke before the fire is even visible. Someone sent a warning, she says, or covered one. You ask the boy. She doesn't answer. You stay indoors the next day. No missions, no deliveries. Just watching the town from behind a lace curtain. The streets look the same, but something's shifted. By dusk, a new patrol marches through. Boots sharper, faces younger. Their dogs bark differently, faster, angrier. The message is clear. Someone talked. You recheck your hiding places. You dismantle the radio again, hide it deeper. You burn an old message, just in case. At midnight, a knock, 3 soft taps, then nothing. It's the priest. He's pale, hands shaking. They searched the chapel, he whispers. Didn't find it. But they asked too many questions. You offer him a seat. He doesn't take it. They'll be watching. Now, he says. Careful with candles. You nod. He leaves. You bolt the door. Draw the blinds. Sit in the dark with your fingers pressed to your lips like they might leak secrets on their own. And then, slowly you begin sewing a new hiding spot. In your coat lining, right beneath the armpit. Because if they're going to catch you, they'll have to get uncomfortably close. And even then, you just might slip through. They call it the drop. Not a drop, the drop. Like a ghost story, whispered around campfires, except the fire is a dying candle. And the camp is a cellar beneath a wine merchant's shop in Orleans. You've been preparing for it for a week. Henriette hands you a folded map with 2 circles, one red, one blue. You'll be at the blue, she says. If you see red run, that's not ours. The airdrop is scheduled for 0312. That means you'll be in the field by 0130. That means you'll leave the house by 0045. That means you won't sleep at all. You pack 2 torches with blue filters, a compass with a hairline crack, your fake ID, a small pistol with 1 bullet which Henriette insists is for if you trip and break your ankle or get caught. Same thing, really. You laugh. Sort of. The field is an empty stretch of farmland, bordered by poplars. In the moonlight, it looks like a sleeping animal, quiet, muscular, waiting to twitch. You arrive first. You wait. 10 minutes. 30. A rustle in the trees. It's not the enemy. It's your team. 3 others you barely know by name. One lays out the torches. Another sets up signal flags. You check the compass again, though you already know which way is north. Ritual is comfort. And right now you need every ounce of comfort you can smuggle past your ribs. Then the sound. Not a roar. A buzz. Far off like a fly caught behind the sky. It grows louder. Closer. The blackness overhead begins to ripple. You flick your torch twice. Once more. The signal is received. The plane circles. Then the drop. 5 parachutes open like flowers. Float silently. The boxes hit with soft, thudding groans, like the earth itself is bracing. You sprint forward with the others, drag them toward the tree line. Each one is heavier than expected. Inside, weapons, medical kits, radios, fabric, rations. 1 crate labeled calendars. That last one contains explosives. Obviously. You drag. You grunt. You nearly fall into a rabbit hole and swear under your breath. One of the others coughs. Someone else slaps him. By 0347, you're back on the road, covered in sweat, smelling like dirt and fire and adrenaline. By 0415, you're home. You've hidden everything. You've burned the drop coordinates. By 0430, you're sipping tea and trying to remember how to breathe slowly again. Historians still argue how accurate Allied drops were. Some claim nearly half landed in the wrong fields. Others insist it was sabotage. But you know that tonight 5 parachutes landed exactly where they were supposed to, and that for a few brief seconds you were part of a machine in perfect sync. You sleep through the morning, wake with straw in your hair and the faint taste of iron in your mouth. Henriette doesn't say a word, but she adds 2 sugar cubes to your tea instead of 1. That's her version of a medal. You clean the mud from your boots. You oil the pistol. You reread the code phrases. Because if last night was the drop, then tomorrow will be the ripple. The ripple hits fast. It starts with a whisper in the market. A woman selling fish says the soldiers are searching barns outside town. By the time you finish your second errand of the day, swapping a shoe sole for a false passport, 3 more whispers, have confirmed it. They're sweeping east to west, field by field, which means the drop didn't go unnoticed, which means you didn't go unnoticed. Henrietta gives you a cloth bag and tells you to take a walk in the sun. That's code for disappear, at least until nightfall. You leave through the alley. Your first stop, the cobbler's shop. Inside, you pass him a note stitched inside a glove. He nods, offers you a pair of ugly boots 2 sizes too big. You take them. Your second stop, the library. A girl with braids takes your bag. Inside, there's a broken radio tube wrapped in cheesecloth. She trades it for a rolled-up newspaper with strange spacing between the lines. You memorize the 3rd paragraph while sipping terrible coffee. Your third stop, the church. Not for mass, for silence. You sit in the back pew and wait. A man walks in and lights a candle for no one. That's the signal. You nod slightly. He leaves a matchbox on the floor near the confessional. You retrieve it after he leaves. Inside, a photograph of a bridge and 3 numbers written in ink so faint it could pass for dust. 27. You don't know what they mean. Not yet. Back at the bakery, the air feels different, tighter, like the house itself is holding its breath. Henrietta meets your eyes and tilts her head ever so slightly toward the oven. Inside, a warm loaf fresh out of the fire. She slices it open. The middle is hollow. Inside, a second matchbox. This one contains a message from London. Sabotage rail. 19 kilometers south. Team of 3. Confirm with windmill turns twice. Simple enough. Except the only other person trained in demolition is Jean. And Jean disappeared 3 days ago. You go to the safe house. It's empty. You check the floorboard. Inside, a scarf, a chocolate wrapper, and a single silver button. His, but no Jean. Historians still argue how many resistance members were betrayed by comrades. Some say betrayal was rare. Others say it was inevitable. You just know this Jean wouldn't leave behind chocolate unless something had gone very, very wrong. You spend the next 6 hours trying not to look suspicious. At 21 Huzaras, you meet 2 others near the bridge. Neither is John. One is a bricklayer, the other a teenager with a nervous twitch and hands too clean to trust. You're the only one with actual demolition training. You sigh, and you get to work. The plan attached charges at the midpoint, enough to damage, not destroy, delay, not erase. You crawl under the bridge with your tools wrapped in rags. The stone is cold, wet, alive with the thrum of approaching trains. You whisper instructions. They barely listen. You rig it, slow, deliberate, the way you were taught. Then you leave. As you walk back through the brush, someone grabs your arm. You spin, ready to punch, to shoot, to run. It's Jean. Barefoot, mud-streaked, eyes wild. "Don't go home," he whispers. "They're waiting." Your lungs freeze. He's shaking. I ran all night." You believe him. But you ask anyway. Did you tell them anything? He doesn't answer, just drops to his knees. I tried not to. Henrietta's house is no longer safe. You don't go back. You watch it from a hilltop. At Euro 214, a convoy arrives. 4 trucks, 1 officer. By Euro 230 they enter. By Euro 232 they leave with no one in custody. By Euro 234 the house explodes. You don't cry. But you clutch Jean's silver button in your fist so tightly it cuts your palm. Henriette is gone, but her oven is still warm. And the windmill, it turns twice. The safe house smells like mothballs and fear. You and Jean hole up there for 3 nights. No lights, no names, no fires. You eat dry crackers and drink water from a chipped enamel cup. The silence stretches between you like wire taut humming with unspoken questions. Jean sleeps in bursts. You don't sleep at all. The radio is gone. Henriette's was lost in the blast, and you don't trust the backups yet. You send messages the old way now. Ink on laundry, slips phrases, dropped at cheese stalls, a button placed on the wrong shelf. You live by symbols. A coat hung inside out on a line means don't approach. A shutter closed at an odd angle means meeting canceled. A child with mismatched socks means change route. You decode them all. The first intel you receive post-blast is grim 3 resistance members rounded up near Tours. A 4th was shot trying to run. That last one, they say, had Henriette's scarf tied to her belt. You wonder if it's true, or if it's just the kind of story soldiers tell each other to feel big. Jean speaks on the 3rd night. I didn't break, he whispers, but I wanted to. That's worse, isn't it? You don't answer, because you understand. You've felt the pressure, the way your name bends under interrogation. Your thoughts turn to liquid. You've practiced holding secrets in your mouth like teeth. But you've also imagined what it would take to shatter. And you know everyone has a breaking point. Historians still argue whether loyalty in the resistance was driven by ideology or fear. Some say patriotism. Others say revenge. You think it's survival. Simple as that. One day at a time. One silence at a time. You shift to a new safe house on day 4. It's inside a flour mill. The miller is a woman named Margot. Sharp elbows, sharper tongue. She gives you a bed made of hay and a bowl of lentils. You eat in silence. Later that night, she tosses a bundle onto your cot. Inside a uniform. German. Clean. Folded with unsettling precision. She raises an eyebrow. You still fit a man's jacket? You stare at her. What is this? A favor for a friend, she replies. One last drop. You don't want to wear it, but you do. Because the mission is clear. Ride the train dressed as a dispatch runner. Exit at Saint-Cyr. Deliver a false order to reroute a convoy headed for Lyon. Destroy the real one en route. You study the forged orders under candlelight. They're perfect. The name, the seal, the tone, arrogant, efficient. just the right number of typos. The risk is enormous. One accent wrong, one hesitation, and you'll be in chains. You cut your hair. You practice walking like someone with power. You stop saying pardon when someone bumps you. You board the train. It's full of soldiers. No one looks twice. You sit beside a man with sweat-stained armpits and a grin too wide for comfort. He talks about sausages the entire ride. You nod. Laugh. Once. At the St. Cyr station, you disembark, clipboard in hand, jaw tight. You walk up to the convoy officer, bark the order, toss a fake name. He grunts, looks at the paper, frowns, then shrugs. Another bloody reroute. Fine. He signs off. You walk away like your shoes don't know they're lying. In your pocket, the real orders. You drop them down a well, behind a stable. Gone. Forever. You make it back to the mill by nightfall. Margot nods once. She gives you a mug of beer. No questions. You sleep that night in full uniform, knife under your pillow boots, still on. In your dream, you're back at the bakery. Henrietta slices a loaf in half and says, "We make bread from ghosts now." You wake up before she explains. The war presses on. You feel its weight in your jaw, your gut, your shadow. But for now, you're alive. And the convoy, it's heading in the wrong direction, exactly where you sent it. The safe house changes again. This time it's a butcher's cellar, damp, lined with hooks, and always 10 degrees too cold, even in summer. The meat's long gone, of course. Just salt stains and bones now. But the hooks stay, a reminder. Gene doesn't come with you. He's reassigned. Somewhere in the north where the rain is worse and the maps more forgiving. You don't ask for details. You never do. Your new handler is a woman named Elise. You meet her during a staged funeral procession. She wears mourning black veil to boots and whispers the meeting point during a fake eulogy for a fake uncle. At the next meeting, she hands you a black notebook. Inside, names. Not resistance code names. Real names and addresses. Teachers. Factory workers. A tram operator. Even a nun. They're all helping, Elise says. They don't know each other. That's the point. But we need to link them now. You flip through. The list is long. Why now, you ask? Because the Allies are coming, she replies, and we're about to need everyone. It feels unreal. The Allies here. You'd half convinced yourself they were a bedtime story. Something distant and mythic, like dragons or parachutes that actually land where they're supposed to. But Elise is serious. She tells you to build roots, connect the people, teach them how to pass messages without touching paper, how to burn what needs burning, how to forget what must never be spoken aloud. You become a teacher overnight. Your classroom back alleys and barns. Your students, ordinary Parisians with extraordinary nerves. You use oranges to practice message concealment, pigeons for courier drills, bread loaves for hollow object exercises. One woman hides notes in her daughter's braids. A man carves codes into the soles of his shoes. You tell them not to trust anyone. You tell them not even to trust you. They laugh, mostly. nervous laughter, but they listen. Historians still debate how civilian the resistance really was, whether it was the people who rose up or a trained few who dragged the people along. But here now under your watch, you see the truth. It's both. The people are tired. Tired of boots on cobblestones. Tired of bad bread and curfews. Tired of waiting for someone else to fight back. You give them structure. And that's what changes everything. Your team grows to 13. They don't meet all at once. That would be stupid. But they pass things to each other now. They share habits. They code switch between gossip and intel like theater performers. One man, a florist, delivers entire reports disguised as bouquets, each bloom a letter in a cipher. You watch them bloom too. But then, as always, the danger arrives. One morning, the tram operator is missing. By nightfall, his address is crawling with soldiers. You call an emergency meeting. The nun brings cheese. The teacher brings fear. You give orders. We scatter. We change. We do not retreat. And for the first time they believe you. You burn the notebook in Elise's fireplace. Its ashes float like confetti, one name at a time disappearing into the smoke. You leave the funeral in the early hours, your face blackened with soot. You sleep on a bench that night, coat wrapped tight. And in the quiet before dawn you whisper each name from memory. Not because you need to remember, but because someone should. You don't look like a leader. That's the whole point. Your collar is frayed. Your shoes are muddy. Your scarf doesn't match your coat. You move like someone slightly out of place, which ironically makes you blend in perfectly. But beneath that soft shuffle and plain wool exterior, you're now running one of the largest resistance cells south of the Seine. You didn't ask for it. It just happened. After Henriette, after Elise moved deeper underground, after the florist disappeared, and the tram operator never came home, there was a void. And when people get scared, they look around for the calmest person in the room. That's you now. You keep meetings brief, eye contact minimal. You never sit at the center of the table. You ask more questions than you answer. And still, they follow you. Tonight, you meet in a half-built attic above a tailor's shop. There's sawdust in the wine, and someone left their radio on just loud enough to be annoying. You turn it down. The voice of Vichy France is still grumbling about loyalty and harvests. You roll your eyes. The updates are swift. One of your contacts in Chartres intercepted a weapons list. A young man in Le Mans says he has access to train schedules. A boy barely 16 claims he saw 2 Germans stash explosives under a covered wagon meant for their own troops. You make a note, not about the explosives, but the boy. He has the same look you did back when this started, half terrified, half curious, mostly exhausted. You send word to keep him busy. Small tasks, nothing that will break him. You're learning how to protect people, not just from the war, but from themselves. Historians still argue whether the internal structure of resistance cells helped or hindered the effort. Some say decentralization saved lives. Others believe tighter control would have prevented betrayals. You think both are true. Chaos protects, but chaos also spills, and the line between independence and isolation is razor thin. You create subgroups. You train messengers. You invent new code phrases. Rain in Toulouse means the drop is cancelled. Madame forgot her scarf means change the meeting point. We're out of plums means a member is compromised. You test these phrases over tea and dry biscuits. You correct mistakes without shaming people, because shame makes people freeze, and frozen people make fatal errors. You meet a man named Laurent, late 30s, greasy hair, a limp from the last war. He used to be a cook. Now he can recite train timetables backward. You assign him to decoding. He shows up 2 days later with an entire poem hidden in a wine label. It contains coordinates and a date. The Allies are pushing. That much is clear. More drops, more movement, more whispers that something big is coming. But with more movement comes more eyes. And one day, your cell receives a gift. A traitor. They don't call him that at first. He's a man with questions. Then someone who asked too many times. Then the one who kept touching the wrong chair. Eventually, someone saw him passing a note behind a pharmacy. You don't kill him. You don't even confront him. You disappear him quietly, respectfully, like sweeping a dead fly off a tablecloth. No one speaks of him again. You sleep terribly that week. The dreams return. Letters, bleeding ink children with hollow eyes, bridges that collapse the moment you step on them. You wake with your hands clenched around your own name. But you keep going because others are watching. And in the resistance, leadership doesn't come with medals. It comes with more secrets, more nights alone, and 1,000 quiet choices that no one will ever thank you for. But you make them anyway. The map on your wall is full of holes, literal ones, burn marks, rat bites, a suspicious stain in the corner that smells like spilled brandy, and metaphorical ones too. Blank spaces, unknowns, roads with names but no purpose, villages where no one ever answers the door. You trace a finger along one route for the 100th time, Chartres to Vendôme West, toward Angers. A path you'll never walk, but one your messages do, folded into linings whispered at rest stops, coded into requests for flour. Each pin on this map is a promise. And right now your promises are beginning to stack like sandbags. The Allies are moving faster. You feel it, not in headlines but in momentum. More drops, more urgent messages, more requests for help you can't always give. One morning, Elise returns. She's thinner, paler, but her voice is still granite. 3 weeks, she says. That's the whisper. 3 weeks until Normandy. You don't exhale. Not really. But your chest lifts in a way it hasn't in months. 3 weeks. That's time to move pieces. Time to set traps. Time to build a little more pressure before the steam valve finally bursts. She hands you a new list. 20 names, most familiar, some not. Ready them, she says. They're now active. You know what that means. No more practice drills. No more role play with hollowed-out baguettes and Morse code tapped under tables. Now it's wires and timers, train tracks and warehouses, real destruction. You train with urgency. Every hour counts. You teach a housemaid how to turn a pocket mirror into a signal device. You teach a retired seamstress how to hide detonation caps in spools of thread. You teach a group of children how to accidentally throw marbles into truck paths. You don't tell them what it's all for, but they know. Historians still argue whether children should have been involved in sabotage. Some say it was exploitation. Others say it was necessity. You say it was the only option, and that you made it as safe as war allowed. One boy, Luke, is too good at it. He gets a German officer to follow him into a dead-end alley by pretending to have found a lost coin. He whistles. The resistance team is waiting. The officer never walks out. You don't ask what they did, but you make sure Luke gets a bar of chocolate and a storybook the next day. He hugs you, asks if he can help again. You hesitate. Then you say, "Next time, just be the lookout." He nods, but you know he won't listen. Bravery and boyhood don't always agree on limits. That evening, you mark 4 depots for destruction. The first houses fuel, the second, ammunition, the third, communication equipment, the fourth, you're not sure. Something marked only Vorsicht and locked tighter than a vault. That one you assign to Jean, who's returned with a limp and a rage that simmers under every step. "I want the mysterious one," he says. "I owe someone a favor." You don't ask who. Instead, you give him the charges, the timing sheet, and the code word for abort sunflower. He nods and disappears into the dark. You go back to your map, add 4 more pins, burn 3 old messages, tape a new code phrase under your water glass. The rooster crows backwards. It doesn't mean anything yet, but soon it will, because everything now means something. A cough, a crooked chimney, a stamp placed slightly askew. Your whole world has become symbology and silence. And yet, oddly, it feels more alive than ever. You hear music on a radio one night, an old waltz, static and melody twisting through the cellar air. You close your eyes. For just a second, you pretend you're at a dance. Not a resistance cell meeting, just a dance. And then the signal fades, and the war hums louder again. The knock comes at midnight. 2 soft taps, 1 sharp. You answer with the phrase of the week. The millstone turns slowly, and the girl on the other side whispers back, but it still grinds. She's no older than 19, wears her courage like a jacket that doesn't quite fit yet. She hands you a folded napkin carefully creased. Inside a single sentence, handwritten, angular, faintly smudged from sweat. Normandy confirmed. June 6th. You don't speak. You don't need to. You've been preparing for this day for what feels like 10 years, even if it's only been 2. Now it's real. The war is about to split open, and everything you've built, all the whispers, the codes, the paper burned in buckets, is about to be put to the test. You go to the bakery. It's no longer a bakery, of course. Not since Henriette. But the back wall still hides a crate of dynamite, a rolled-up map, and 3 gas masks that haven't been checked since Christmas. You kneel and light a match. One by one, you test the fuses. Everything works. Outside, the streets are too quiet, which is how you know the Germans feel it too. They don't know what's coming, but they know something is. You meet with Elise. She's wearing gray today, a color that disappears in shadows. There will be chaos, she says. Confusion, interference. Some of our own cells won't get word in time. You nod. We act. Anyway, she continues. The disruption we cause in the South gives the North a better shot. And just like that, the full weight of strategy presses onto your shoulders. Because you're not supporting the invasion. You're part of it. Your orders are clear. Sabotage 5 rail lines between Le Mans and Tours. Disrupt radio towers near Chartres. Destroy fuel stores at 2 identified locations. Create diversions. Loud ones. The loudest job is yours. An explosion big enough to convince a German logistics officer that something critical has just happened on the wrong side of the map. You pick the granary. It's wide, old, distant enough from homes to minimize risk. You plan it with John, who returns from his depot mission with a burned jacket and an exhausted smirk. Whatever was in that 4th depot, he says it isn't anymore. He doesn't elaborate. You don't ask. Instead, you sketch diagrams, timers, angles, exit paths. You calculate fire spread. You stash medical supplies nearby. You memorize the layout with the precision of a cartographer drawing his final map. Then, you assign teams to the rails. You look them each in the eye. You may not see the result, you tell them, but you'll be part of it. Some nod, others flinch. No one says no. Historians still argue how effective these sabotages really were. Did they delay German reinforcements by days, hours, or was it just noise? But you know this noise can save lives, and tonight noise is your profession. The attack is set for 0312. You eat nothing, you sleep even less. The timer is set. The team is in position. You crouch behind a hedge, watching the granary, like it's a sleeping dragon you're about to kick in the teeth. You whisper to the ground to Henriette. To anyone listening, let this work. The explosion is enormous. Windows rattle 6 blocks away. The sky turns red for a full 2 seconds. And then, nothing. No alarms. No trucks. No gunfire. Just silence. Until a rooster crows. Out of rhythm. And then a dog barks. And then all of France begins to wake up. The next morning, word spreads. The Allies have landed. Normandy is on fire. You don't cheer. You don't run through the streets waving a flag. You sit on a bench with your head in your hands and Let your bones feel every second they've held upright these past 2 years. The war isn't over. Not yet. But today it has a new shape, and for the first time, the shape doesn't look like despair. They say you'll know liberation by the sound, not the rumble of tanks or the crack of gunfire, but the roar of cheering. That long rolling wave of human joy crashing through a city like a river let loose from its dam. But right now, it's quiet. The invasion is real. The Allies are crawling up from Normandy like roots through old stone. But your village still belongs to gray uniforms and curfews and the sharp metal bark of German boots. So, you keep working. Your job has shifted from sabotage to survival, from planting bombs to planting hope. You organize information drops. You transcribe Allied broadcasts by hand, hour after hour, static devouring most of the words. You copy them anyway. Even the fragments, troops advancing from airborne divisions have taken French resistance instrumental in. You send these scraps out like breadcrumbs, folded into prayer books, slipped inside baguettes, tucked beneath the rims of broken hats. Every note is a lifeline. Every line is a reason to hold on just one more week. Jean has taken to calling you Captain. You never ask for the title. He says you earned it when you stayed after the bakery burned and didn't disappear like the rest. Le Capitaine Fantôme, he jokes. The ghost captain. You try to smile, but the weight of those who vanished hangs heavy. Henriette, the florist, the boy who loved chocolate, the girl with the braids. Some were lost, some turned, some simply faded away too tired to keep playing a game where the rules change every day. Historians still argue how many resistance members lived to see the liberation. Estimates vary. Memories blur. Names vanish. But you don't count numbers. You count missions completed, bridges saved, lives disrupted just long enough for someone else to get away. One day, an Allied scout plane drops a package tied with blue string. It lands in a field. No parachute. Just thud and dust and a pulse in your chest. Inside, leaflets, field maps, rations, 3 sticks of gum. One note. The note says Paris in 10. Hold until then. 10 days. You read it 4 times before you believe it. You call a meeting. The attic again. Fewer faces now, but sharper ones. Everyone who's still here is here for good. You give the message. And then you assign shifts, not for sabotage, not for ambush, for joy. Someone must be ready to hang the flags. Someone must open the shuttered cafes. Someone must sweep the broken glass from the church steps. If this is real, if Paris is truly coming back, it must look like we were waiting for it all along. You assign the task of painting signs, Bienvenue, Liberté, Vive la France. You order them in secret, just a few, in case it's false hope again. but in your gut, you know, this time, it's real. The town starts to hum. Children play a little louder. A butcher gives meat without asking for a coupon. A seamstress sews tricolor ribbons into her aprons. And for the first time, someone plays a violin from an open window without fear. It's fragile, it's early, but it's freedom in rehearsal. You post a lookout on the ridge. Every day, he brings back updates. They're closer, he says. I can hear them now. And on the 9th day, he runs back breathless. They're here. You don't speak. You just grab the box of flags, the paint, the gum, the names of the fallen, and you walk into the street slow, deliberate, like every footstep is an offering. Then you raise your arm. The town exhales, and France inhales again. The tanks roll in at dawn. You don't hear them at first, just a tremble in the ground like a distant thunderstorm still deciding whether to break. Then the rumble grows, steel on stone, rubber tracks pressing memory into pavement. You step out just as the first one appears at the edge of town. It's painted with mud, nicked with battle scars, draped in camouflage netting that flutters like a tattered flag. A soldier pokes his head out. His helmet's too big. His grin is even bigger. He waves. You wave back. And then, like someone's flipped a switch, the whole town erupts. Windows open. Church bells ring. People scream names they haven't said aloud in years. One woman throws flowers. Another throws bread. Jean climbs onto a fountain and shouts, "Tell them the bakery is back." Someone cheers. Someone laughs. Someone sobs into a tricolor flag with frayed edges and cigarette burns. You stand still in the middle of the square. You don't cheer. You don't move. Because your body doesn't quite believe it yet. But your hands shake and your throat tightens, and that's how you know it's over, or at least this part of it. The American soldiers step down from their trucks like astronauts onto a new planet. They smell like chewing gum and engine oil. Their French is terrible. One of them hands a child a chocolate bar and gets a kiss on the cheek so enthusiastic it knocks his helmet off. Someone starts singing. It's off-key, but everyone joins in anyway. You find Elise again near the old train station. She's still in gray, but this time her lips curl into something almost like a smile. "We made it," she says. You look at her. Look at the sky. Look at the bullet holes in the windows and the graffiti that's already being painted over. "We're still making it," you reply. And you're right, because now comes the cleanup, the lists, the reckonings. The war doesn't end clean. Historians still argue about how to define liberation. Was it the tanks, the signatures, the first newspaper printed without censorship? You think maybe it's this, a town square full of people hugging people they thought they'd lost. Kids who've never played in the open, learning how to shout without fear. Someone lighting a cigarette and not hiding the flame. You walk past the post office. It's already reopened. The man behind the desk winks and says, "First letters on me, Capitaine." You smile for real. In the coming weeks, There will be trials, accusations, names whispered like curses. But for now, just for today, no one is looking over their shoulder. Jean passes you a drink. It's too warm. Tastes like regret and vinegar. But you toast anyway. To ghosts, he says. To bread, you reply. You go back to the old attic one last time. The sawdust is gone. The light hits the walls at a new angle. You tear down the old map. Fold it gently. Tuck it in your coat. Tomorrow someone will ask what you did during the war. You'll say you waited. You watched. You learned how to disappear and how to return. But tonight you'll just say, I helped hang the flag. You don't expect the quiet to be so loud. It hums in your ears, this strange absence of curfews, boots, and code words. For the first time in years, you wake up not to a mission, but to bird song. You lie there, blinking at the ceiling of a borrowed room in a half-rebuilt inn, and think, what do I do now? No one tells you how to stop. War teaches you how to move, how to hide, how to fight. It does not teach you how to sit still. The resistance disbands without ceremony. One day, you're organizing safe routes and blacklists. The next, you're told your cell is no longer necessary. Necessary. A word that used to define you. Now it's a past tense, like smoke. Elise leaves again, this time for Lyon, where new plans are being drawn up, this time with peace in mind. She kisses your cheek and tells you not to vanish. John takes a job driving a truck. He offers you a seat beside him. You say maybe. You spend your days wandering. The bakery is open again. Different owners, different smell, but the bell over the door still makes the same sound. You step inside just once and buy a loaf you don't need. You walk out holding it, like it's a relic. You visit the attic. There's nothing left, just dust and a single bootlace someone forgot. You don't take it. Let it rest. Historians still argue how many resistance members were rewarded. Some got medals, some got silence. A few got jobs they didn't want. You get none of these. And maybe that's the reward, obscurity. Because if no one needs you, maybe that means the world is healing. Still, it's strange, isn't it, to live for so long in whispers and then be expected to speak again like nothing happened. You find a routine. Slowly. Mornings in the market. Evenings with a deck of cards. Once a week you send letters to people who never write back. You visit the graves, the ones with names, the ones without. You speak softly, just in case. One afternoon, a young girl runs up to you with a flower crown. She places it on your head and says, "Mama says you were brave." You smile. You don't correct her. You sit by the river for hours that evening, watching the light bend on the water, feeling the silence settle in your bones, not as something missing, but as something earned. The file arrives in a plain envelope. No stamps, no markings. Just your name written in a tidy, unfamiliar hand. You hesitate before opening it, half expecting it to vanish in a puff of smoke like the old coded letters used to, but it doesn't. Inside 40 pages, stapled, redacted lines, black bars, half sentences, gaps where your story should be. You laugh, just once. Then you sit on the floor of your apartment, knees bent paper in your lap, and start to read. They call you an asset. They note your compliance. They highlight one moment in neat detached prose, agent possibly compromised. Withheld communication for 36 hours during blackout. Intent unknown. You remember that night. There was a boy. There was a bridge. There was a choice. You didn't report it, not because you were hiding, because you were human. They don't mention his name. They just mark it deviation. You flip to the final page. It ends without ceremony. No conclusion. No thank you. Just a blank square labeled disposition unknown. You sit with that for a while. Then you fold the file, wrap it in old cloth, and place it at the back of a drawer you never open. Outside, the city moves on. You hear scooters, the clang of a tram, laughter from a bakery line stretching down the block. You step into the street. No one looks twice. You're just another face. No medals, no salutes. Just footsteps and shadows and the scent of overripe pears from the corner vendor. Historians still argue whether the war ever really ends for those who lived inside it. You think, no. It softens. It quiets. It shifts into a story you carry in your spine, in your palms, in the way you glance over your shoulder when no one's behind you. And maybe that's the price of remembering, or maybe it's the privilege. Either way, you were there, and no one can take that from you. You touch the scar just above your left hip. Smile, then turn the corner and disappear into the crowd. And now, as the city fades and the pages close, you let yourself slow down. There's no more message to pass, no signal to wait for, just the soft hush of a world that somehow kept turning even when you weren't sure it would. The boots are gone. The whispers have gone quiet. And your breath moves in and out like the tide, steady, unhurried, unafraid. You think of the girl with the flower crown, of the bridge, of the coat you still keep folded in a box. They're not heavy now. They just are. Like the names you once memorized and the trains you helped delay. Like the words you never said aloud, but always carried like compass points in your chest. Some nights the dreams still visit, but more often now you sleep. Because the fight is over, and you ghost Captain Baker's shadow, unsung spy, are allowed to rest. So sink a little deeper into the bed. Let the dark surround you, warm and soft and honest. You made it. You're here. And no one needs saving tonight. Just the quiet, just the stillness, just sleep.